have so many questions. Show me the answers. I'm afraid. Why am I here? I lost the digits. Should I cut a strike?
Welcome back, everyone, to An Ordinary Search for Truth. My name is Nate, and today we're going to be talking about some key aspects of non duality that will most definitely change your life for the better. Now, the spiritual path is notorious for having what you might call the dark night of the soul, or this time of great inner turmoil and inner suffering. And that's very true. In fact, there's many of them that I've experienced along my own path where I'll reach certain states of understanding or consciousness and everything seems to be absolutely just perfect and the way it is, and then my mind will come up and do its thing once again, and I'll fall back into old thought patterns and old lower states of being. By comparison, they feel like a dark night of the soul. And one might think, well, why should I even pursue spirituality if it can open up the door for this great inner suffering and turmoil and discomfort? Why would I even go there? You know, a lot of people experience what might be considered like psychotic breaks and things like that when pursuing non-duality, because it's the questioning of reality. It's experimenting with thoughts and ideas about what reality is, and ultimately comes to the conclusion that reality is infinite consciousness, that you are God, and all of these sort of things that to most people seem very crazy when especially when they don't understand the context within which these things are being said. But I wanted in this video to highlight some of the absolutely amazing and incredible things that non-duality has brought to my life. You know, it's very easy to focus on the negatives and the things that were hard and difficult, but ultimately those were times of growth and transformation, and they can be uncomfortable and difficult. But, you know, out of the fire comes the phoenix, as they say, and it's very much that way. So I wanted to, in this video, focus upon three aspects of non-duality that I have experienced in my life that I would not give up for anything. Where the non-dual teachings and understandings have improved my life to an extent that I can't really describe. So it'll probably be a bit of a shorter video, but I'm sure you'll be okay with that. The first aspect that I want to talk about is understanding impermanence. So in non-duality and a lot of Eastern traditions, there's this idea of impermanence, of the changing of the world and of experience, that nothing is truly permanent. And you hear this a lot I've heard this a lot in Buddhism, especially the impermanence of the world. And what is this actually talking about? Well, it's talking about the external world of experience, the internal world of emotions and thoughts. All of this is in a constant state of flux, of transforming from one thing to another, of deteriorating or growing. There's this aspect of change that is constant. I have a shirt that I love to wear that says the only constant is change. And this is hinting toward impermanence. That's basically what it is. Everything within your experience is constantly changing except for one thing. And that is the I, or the consciousness, the one who is experiencing it, who is witnessing, observing these passing phenomena, the thoughts as they arise, the feelings as they arise in the body. The consciousness that is experiencing all that is the one constant, which non duality, of course, is most interested in, because the thing that is constant, that is unchanging, that is stable, that must be an access door toward infinite reality, because infinite reality is what it is. It doesn't change. But the focus of this teaching is on the impermanence of everything else. And I've talked a lot about the self, about consciousness, about infinite reality, and so I won't be going into that as much here. What I'm talking about here is the changing nature of our experience and really coming to terms with that very deeply. Understanding that the money that you have now will someday be gone. The family that you have now will someday be gone. The possessions that you have will someday not be yours. The weather will change. Your life circumstances will change. Your job might change. All of these things are not static. They're not going to be constant and consistent for the duration of the rest of your life. And for a lot of people, that creates a lot of resistance inside of them, creates a lot of desperate clinging and fear of loss. I talked about this in my video regarding desire and fear. A lot of this comes out of not accepting deeply the fact that our experience and the world is ever changing, and that we can't really ever truly predict where it will change to next. We can guess and make predictions if we want, but how often are these guesses and predictions exactly accurate and consistent with where we are taken? Very rarely. Even just today, the weather said that it would be rainy around 10 p.m. It started raining around 8. It was a prediction. But reality decided to start raining earlier. So, recognizing the impermanence of things and finding a deep acceptance with that is something that I gained pretty early on in my spiritual journey. It was pretty obvious and easy to recognize that that's how things were, and that we could either fight against this and resist it our entire lives, or we can accept it and kind of go with the flow, which was very easy for me. I'm a very easygoing guy. I go with the flow most of the time anyway, so that wasn't crazy. But I did come to realize some deeper aspects of this, which is this sense of great and deep appreciation for every moment of my experience, because I recognize that my experience will never be exactly the same as it is right now in this moment. I might have similar experiences, but it will never be exactly the same quality that it is right now. And so, recognizing that this moment is absolutely unique and so, so special, so, so miraculous, and recognizing that brings this sense of appreciation and gratitude and acceptance. Basically, it opens the door for you to be able to appreciate things so much when they're going well, and learn to accept things when they aren't going so well. So the two polarities of our experience, the positive and the negative, when you recognize that your experience is always going to be this, that there's always going to be the highs and the lows, the ups and the downs, when you really come to terms with that and recognize that it's impossible to find some high that you just stay at all the time in your experience, then you're able to realize that when things are going well and positive, you can appreciate them so much. And when things take a dip, you can accept that that's the way things are and that there's a rise on the horizon. So it eliminates a lot of resistance and suffering that we experience when we're constantly trying to grasp for all the best stuff and keep it forever. That never really works out and causes a lot of suffering. So this idea of impermanence within non-duality has brought great appreciation and acceptance into my life. The second thing is the idea of a shared self or a shared consciousness, that the consciousness that I experience, the I that I refer to when I say I, is the exact same consciousness and I that you refer to. We may appear separate. We may have our own manifestations of bodies within which the I is located. But when you really investigate the nature of the I, the nature of the consciousness that you are, when you really go deeply, deeply into that, all the way to the bottom, then you come to realize that this consciousness has no unique qualities that you personally own that no one else has, if that makes sense. That fundamentally the consciousness that you are is absolutely in every way the exact same quality as everyone else's consciousness. That to be aware is the same no matter where the awareness is happening. To know that I am, that I exist, is the same no matter where that is happening. Okay, and this goes deeper in and of itself that I'm not going to go into, but once you really start to grasp that what I am at my deepest core is exactly the same and not separate truly from what you experience as that, when you really recognize that and experience that, it brings this compassion and generosity to your life that, again, is it's truly indescribable. Because then the golden rule is this whole new meaning. It's not just do unto others as you would have them do to you. It's when you do unto others, you are literally doing unto yourself. So why would you ever wish something terrible upon yourself? Why would you wish suffering upon yourself or pain upon yourself or poverty or, whatever the case may be? Why would you inflict that upon yourself? Obviously, you wouldn't, right? You would never wish poor upon yourself. You want the best for yourself. And in an egoic way, that's very selfish thinking. But when you put it in the context of what I am is what everyone else is, fundamentally, then it moves it out of this selfish place into a very selfless place. And this unconditional love and compassion and generosity for other people and other living things and just your entire experience, it takes this dramatic shift. So a lot of people's big argument against non-duality is this sense of losing their individuality, their uniqueness, their separateness. That's a huge resistance that a lot of people, including myself, have experienced on the spiritual path. And the only remedy for that is to go deeply into yourself and realize what you are. And by doing so, you will come to, at the same time, realize what everyone else is. And when you cultivate compassion and love for yourself as that, it will naturally spill over into your relationships with others. And you will start to be more compassionate and understanding and accepting of others and love them unconditionally as you would hope that they would do for you, as you must do for yourself. And then the last thing is seeing thoughts and the activity of the mind clearly, or seeing it as it is. When you really dive into looking at your thoughts and coming to explore what they are and what their limits and function is, you begin to understand that thoughts are more of a phenomenon in the same way that visual phenomena or any of the sensory phenomena that you experience, how it comes and goes, and a lot of times you don't have a ton of control over that. It seems very external. When you really start exploring and dissecting thought patterns and the way that your mind works, you start to take a step back from those thoughts. And instead of identifying with them, and when your thoughts say, oh, I am this, I am that, when you can kind of take a step back and say, well, if I'm seeing these thoughts happen, and when I'm seeing these thoughts arise and fall away in the same way that I see my external experience rise and fall away, then these thoughts must be somewhat removed from me. I must be somewhat more fundamental than these thoughts. And when you start to do that, this separation between you and your thoughts that you've been so identified with starts to increase. And thoughts become more like a phenomena rather than this very intimate thing that we are. And when that happens, it creates this sense of very open-mindedness where you can accept new thoughts from other people, and you're open to those because you recognize that you don't have to be identified with them in the same way you don't have to identify with your own thoughts, and you can maintain this separation. So then in I like doing this because politics is such an intense, emotionally charged, identity charged thing that people have is with politics. It's the difference of saying, I am Republican. I agree with everything that Republicans say. Or another person saying, I am Democrat. I agree with everything that the Democrat Party says. This is thoughts that we have identified with, ideas that we have identified with, and now we are those. But when you get that separation, you can start to say instead, I am consciousness, and I agree with a lot of the things that the Republicans or the Democrats or whoever are saying. Now you're not a Republican or a Democrat per se, you just agree with, as consciousness, you agree with these ideas. You agree with these thoughts. So we're still identified, but there's some separation now. You realize that if your ideas about being a Republican or a Democrat were to change, that you wouldn't lose your sense of identity. It's not an attack on you. It's not an attack on yourself. It's just an attack on ideas. It's a changing of ideas. It's a transformation of ideas. And you can have a conversation with somebody who has different thoughts and ideas, and it's not a personal attack. You can actually have a conversation at that point instead of it getting into a heated argument where feelings are hurt and the relationship is left wounded. So that's kind of the difference there, right? We start to take a step back from our identification with our thoughts and start seeing them more as a phenomena happening within us that we are observing. And as we take that process further and further, we eventually can completely remove our identification with thoughts in the same way that we could remove our identification with a particular car that we had for a while that we got rid of. Instead of trying to cling onto it, we can accept, the car was a passing thing, and it doesn't fundamentally hurt me to lose this. Thoughts will take on the same thing. We Thoughts can come and go as they please, arise and fall as they will, and it doesn't disturb our fundamental peace and sense of self because it's something more fundamental now. And this will create, like I say, open-mindedness. Ultimately, it creates this mental stability, this very deep stability to where you can go out into the world and interact with many different people and different ideas and perspectives on the world, and you don't feel attacked all the time. You don't have to get offended. That's a huge blessing of this is you can learn that it's absolutely worthless to become offended. There's no reason. It's not a personal attack. It doesn't have to go any deeper than just thoughts interacting with thoughts, right? And at the end of the day, all of these things, understanding impermanence, understanding our shared self and our consciousness, understanding our thoughts and the way that our minds work, when we go deeply into this in a very non-dual way, we eventually achieve this overarching sense of peace. This is the primary aspect that I would say that you can receive through non-duality. Despite going through a dark night of the soul or any of the difficulties and transformations and discomforts that might arise, you start connecting with this inner peace, truly, that is so stable and consistent and intimate through it all that all of the calamity and the suffering and all of these things that may happen start to take on less and less reality. They take on less and less weight, and you're left with this sense of peace and calm and all is well that gets you through those difficult times. It's a very difficult balance trying to learn about non-duality and experience what it's pointing to and dealing with integrating that into your regular life. It's very hard to do. It's a very delicate line to walk. But the thing that can get you through it, that got me through it, was this very, very deep, fundamental peace and knowledge that all is okay, that everything is all right, that it may be difficult right now, that things may seem confusing and all of this, but at the end of the day, there's this peace that cannot be taken. It's absolutely unshakable, and you can lean on that through those things. Of all the wonderful transformative qualities that non-duality has brought to my life, the absolute most fundamental and most impactful one for me is this sense of peace that arises. And I hope that for you. I want you to experience that peace and have it as your constant companion every day. That would be amazing. And so I'm creating these videos in the hopes that it may help you do that at some point. At some point along your spiritual journey, you will be able to access this peace and realize that it's always there. It's always available, always accessible, no matter what. No matter how terrible, crazy things get, that peace will always be there for you. That's my wish. So thank you so much for watching this video, and if you like what I'm doing here, hit a like down below, and definitely subscribe if you want to be notified for future videos. Comment below if any of this rang true for you, or if you have experience with any of these aspects of non-duality and how they've impacted your life, how you've gotten through difficult times. I would love to hear about that. So leave that in the comments below, and last, of course, I will see you in the next video. Don't worry, I've got a lot more content for you to enjoy. Click the link to the right to see a video that goes hand in hand with what you just watched. On the left is a playlist I recommend you check out.
And down below, you can see my latest video release. Your support means the world to me, so thank you.